We'll be fine. All right.
Fine.
Good
That's all
morning,
right.
good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Friday Wrap in Finance and Coffee. My name is Sadish Visvalingam. We got Chelsea Deacon helping me out, as well as David Browne. Welcome all.
Morning. Hi, David.
Hi, Chelsea, Sadish. Morning, everyone.
So, David, tell us a little bit about yourself. So, you are obviously you got a BPO business overseas. So, you are from the remote broker.
Yep, Remote Broker Solutions. I'm also a mortgage broker as well through Integrity Finance Australia. Just been in the industry since July 1980. Joined Bank of New South Wales, which later became Westpac. Had 20 years there, of which about 17 of those were in various legal roles within the Westpac group, including setting up centralised loan processing and security processing centres in Papua New Guinea and Melbourne. So, and from there moved on into wholesale funding through National Mortgage Market, which was an originator and or had wholesale funding for originators and mortgage management business. It was a subsidiary of Bendigo Bank, which a number of years ago got rolled into Adelaide Bank, and now obviously they're making that Bendigo. From there into some a non-bank lender when GFC happened. It was Jumpstart Home Loans, bit unique, 98% LVR, no LMI cost to borrowers, but it didn't survive GSC, unfortunately. But anyway, and then that forced me into broking. So 16 years broking. And 3.5 years ago, set up Remote Broker Solutions. So, yeah, that's
there
it.
you go. So the Remote Broker Solutions is offshore, basically offshore support service for mortgage brokers. You are in Manila, Philippines, right? So that's operating from Philippines.
We actually operate out of Clark, which is the old US Air Force base that's now turned into a Freeport zone. So it's about 80k north of Manila. It has its own international airport, but unfortunately no direct flights in from Australia. So you have to go via Singapore is probably the best way to get there, or fly into Manila and do the drive. So a couple of hours drive. So
perfect.
Yeah. But we've got staff scattered around the whole of the Philippines. So yeah, so some work from home as well.
Effectively, David, you are a BPO, right? So you are a BPO that helps brokers to work their way through. So that we can break into from there. Chelsea, what do you think is a good time for us to break into our main topic of the week?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. You'll be well versed in this one, David.
Yes.
Yeah. So David, we want to talk a little bit about the Fair Work, the ombudsman, the court ruling, and what is the impact for the brokers.
Yeah, so it's interesting. This ruling that came out on the 26th of September was in relation to a legal firm in Australia. Interestingly, it wasn't the first one. There was another ruling earlier September that involved an IT company, and that ruling also referenced a federal court ruling on an Australian business with a worker in the US. The IT company had a worker based in Indonesia. The common thing about all three of these is that it comes down to the contracts, and some of them were direct hire contracts. One in particular, the one with the legal firm, was a independent contractor agreement. Okay. And the Indonesian one, the US one, the pay rate didn't come up in the ruling. All three of them, the commonality in those rulings were the fact that the Australian business generated a contract with an overseas worker. The contract was signed and returned to Australia and effectively opened in an Australian-based agreement. Therefore, the Fair Work Commission and the Federal Court have attached that those offshore workers have the same rights as an onshore worker to make a claim to Fair Work. Okay. Part two of that one with the latest ruling is that that worker now has the ability, and she has made an unfair dismissal claim, which is still yet to be heard. So that may fail, but the crucial point here is that those overseas workers have a claim under Fair Work Australia, is as the rulings there. And I think it's even gone that bit further with that federal court ruling where the Australian business hired somebody in the US and didn't do it through a US company. They did it through their Australian company. The worker returned his employment agreement to Australia, and effectively that's part of the ruling there.
David, that was what I was just going to bring up. So obviously your business has a head office that is based overseas. You do have a business here as well. But this is part of where this has come into play, where it's actually an Australian company that has done a direct hire without, utilising the services of, say, a Remote Broker Solutions or, many of the others that we know about. And this is where that issue has come in, because it's, say, a business that's just gone out and said, hey, would you like a job?
Yeah, correct. So there's a number of different ways that you can hire. And we talk about the banks with their offshore teams, that sort of thing. So they will either be going through a BPO, or in some cases you'll find a company that's large enough and can sustain setting up their own business in a country such as India, Philippines, Colombia, wherever you're offshoring to, or wherever they want to base their operations. So the key thing in all of this is all of your BPOs, whether they've got an Australian company and in our case, a Philippine company, okay? What protects everyone here is that the staff, if they're hired in India, Philippines, whatever, and employed by that Philippine company or the offshore company, their work agreements, their work contracts are based on that country's employment laws. Okay. So they're employed direct. The employment contracts never come to the broking business in Australia, if we're using this industry as an example. So when I first started offshoring in 2016, I went through a BPO myself. We never ever saw the work contracts for those staff that were working for us. We had a service agreement with the BPO. So our service agreement was the BPO was going to find and provide a staff member that would work in our business. Okay. So the staff members were providing the service that we required under the service agreement with the BPO. And that's basically what's different to a direct hire. So it's a protection for an Australian business if they're going through a third party, or if they're large enough and they want to set up their own operation offshore. So
it's a really tricky one, David, because I think sometimes, it's one of the common questions we're asked at Mr. Mentor, who should my first employee be? When should I hire? Because, we work with a lot of brokers who are sub 4 years, and once they get past 4 years, they want to look to expand their businesses. And we did a session earlier in the year, someone by the name of Paul Hankin, and he's a cybersecurity expert. One of the things he spoke about is, yes, if you're going to hire directly, these are all the things that you need to be aware of. Where is information being stored? What monitoring software do you have in place? And this is all the stress that a BPO takes away. I would encourage everyone who's watching today to go and have a look at Adam Grokey's profile on LinkedIn. He actually wrote a huge article about this recently. So obviously being part of Sherlock, but he spoke about the challenges of where brokers do hire directly and they're sharing passwords. VPNs aren't set up properly. Are you complying with local laws? Do you know that in the Philippines, you're supposed to provide 13 months worth of salary and things like this? It's all the stuff that, you spend a lot of time. Sadish, you've got a team overseas as well. What about you? How have you sort of managed that, and what does that look like for you?
Look, we are using a BPO as well. We're using a BPO company just to keep it simple. Put that in perspective, right? I 100% agree what you said, David, as well as Chelsea. The reason we went through BPO is number of things. Number one is even whether I am Sri Lankan, I wasn't fully well versed about the rules and regulations of the labor laws. So because of that, I want to make sure we always connect with someone who knows that. Number one. And number two goes back to what you said, Chelsea, cybersecurity and all that information. Because when we go through a global BPO, I'm pretty sure David business would be the same. What we do is they do something called white rooming. So you have to be in office, you can't work from home. You can only got view access. So there was a lot of that's been helped to set up for us, which made my life much easier. And the third biggest thing is the BPO cost compared to if I go direct, I could get 50% cheaper, but I wasn't sure how to manage the staff. So that's where I think using a BPO added a lot of value to us, because we can have direct staff, but we are not big enough to have a manager and a whole team there. So having a BPO really helped. Now, will that be the same in your opinion, David? Like, having that particular things in place. So in that way, like white rooming and staff protection and staff rules, that makes a big difference. I'll think, right?
Yeah, it certainly does, Sadish. You've had you have risks of in respect to monitoring. Correct with the data. What are the protections if you've got somebody that's direct working from home? As a BPO, we do have staff working from home, but that's only where the client is happy for that. And we then have monitoring. We go when we deliver PCs out. So we format PCs, we disable USB ports, only allow certain things to be accessed via those ports in need. And one of the new things that we're implementing is a 2-factor on sign up, which is an added protection as well. That'll be via a special key that they'll be provided with. Software monitoring, IT remote into the computers at all times, just to make sure that there's nothing stored on hard drives, that sort of stuff. We review screenshots with the monitoring, all that sort of thing with the work from home. We also are configuring internet connections via modems and stuff like that. So, but then the broker's got to be happy with the work from home. If the broker wants work from office, they get the office. So it was a bit hard coming out of COVID because you had everyone at home. So we do have staff that are hybrid and everything like that. So we've tried to cater for the businesses retaining the staff. There were some brokers where they insisted on the office and the staff members ended up resigning. Interestingly enough, retention of staff, we actually find, and this is with our sister BPO in the Philippines as well, we find a higher, the number of people leaving and resigning are the work from home. The ones in the office are happy to stay there. We have a better retention rate on workers in the office, so which was an interesting stat. Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say. I was chatting with a business who's based out of Nepal, and to be honest, their staff get meals. They do monthly activities. They're able to collaborate together. I mean, it's a bit like us being isolated, isn't it? It's much nicer being, in a team environment. And if I was getting meals brought to the office every day, why would I want to leave?
Why would you leave? Yeah,
I think it's just a really timely reminder. But I think regardless, I mean, there were a couple of cases last year with brokers who were taken to Fair Work having subcontract employees. And Fair Work rulings were that they were like employees. They were working directly for that business. They were working more than 40 hours a week. In one case, it was someone had, been able to demonstrate they'd been working 50 hours a week for that business. So I think we do need to look at some of these things, and there's a reason now, these payroll tax issues have come up. So we probably all need to familiarise ourselves with some of the Fair Work laws, especially those that are coming out around the right to disconnect laws that are going to be coming out mid next year, and that will affect so many people in the industry. Fair Work's overloaded and no one wants to be taken to Fair Work. But I think, there are people who do the right things, and there are some who perhaps haven't educated themselves enough on the minimum standards. And that's where you can protect yourself by using a business like yours who are absolute industry experts. So thanks for that, David. That's great.
Yeah. I think if we just go back quickly to that Fair Work decision, it brought in the minimum wage situation there. And I think it goes back to freelancers were originally started to be used for ad hoc projects. So the contract had a start and a finish, okay? And gradually over time, the freelancers been evolved into more at the full-time role, as you're talking about there, Chelsea. But the thought process, they're an independent contractor, they're a subcontractor, and that's now proven not to be the case. And therefore, if you're utilising offshore and the what you're paying them isn't the minimum wage, you're at risk, and it's going to it's a costly affair to have to deal with Fair Work Australia.
David, question for you. So who made the claim? So is that a staff overseas? They're the one who put the claim on this? How did this end up in the court?
So in both the one with the IT that was ruled upon on the 6th of September and which was a guy working in Indonesia for an Adelaide-based IT company, and then the Filipino worker who was working as legal assistant for I think it's a Queensland-based firm. Both of those parties put the claim into Fair Work Australia. Okay, the IT worker, their case actually referenced a federal court ruling. So somebody asked on Finance and Coffee yesterday, can this be challenged in the courts? Well, I think there's already a court precedent there, and unless you want to appeal, or take on and try and change a federal court decision, it's going to be a costly affair trying to do that.
Yep.
You're sort of talking $3,000 an hour representation to get there.
Yeah.
You're going to have some deep pockets.
Yeah, exactly. And look, Sadish, you talked before about saving, up to 50% of what it would cost you by going direct rather than through a BPO. Question, is it worth it? There's a lot of options out there. People should find the one that suits them and their business and the people they can work with. They're all different. Some are full transparent fee models. Some are flat fee. You've got to work out what's going to suit your business the best. Who you can work with is important. I know at RBS we try and match the staff member with the broker. We don't just say here's a person that's going to work in your business. They need to be able to work together. And if it turns out they can't, we change it around. So that's important to have that rapport and relationship, and that helps get the buy-in and the quality of work to come through.
Great, thank you so much, David. We should move on to the next topic. So AMP announces commission changes last Friday after the wrap had gone to air. There was lots of conversation around this in the group. Sadish, do you think that other lenders are going to implement the same policies?
I think, look, Chelsea, it's a good question, because as a broker, you always prefer to have some kind of a stepped clawback position. I think a lot of banks and lenders has been kind of in the market trying to test these waters and see. But it's very interesting, obviously, AMP doing this as well. But I think that the key here to understand is your business decisions or the customer requirements are not driven by the clawback policy. I think that's, as a business for us, that's the key thing what we are trying to focus on. And there might be things that will require to go to AMP because of product policy or rates, not because of the clawback policy. So I think that's what we try to focus in my business a bit. Chelsea, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. There are lots of lenders within the industry where, 90, 80% of their business is made up of third-party distribution. So I think they'll all be having a look at this. But I think the ones where they're implementing, the fair use. So, as an example, divorces are up significantly. So if you've got a case to be able to put forward to say, look, these clients were happy 18 months ago, they haven't quite survived, this is what's going to happen, and you're able to do some sort of substitution with the bank, and, there's a stepped approach, I think that's, the way that many will go. I don't think the majors are going to rush to do this anytime soon. That's my personal opinion. So apologies to those watching out there. But I think, like you say, you're making the decisions based on what's right for your clients at the time. And I think, that some of the questions that came up were around, debt, divorce, hardship. How is that, all going to play out? And I think there just needs to be some more simplistic approaches around it, because if I remember bringing up the policies around who does what, you almost need a degree to be able to understand it. So it's really tricky for new brokers to navigate. And I don't think any of us go out there trying to do the wrong thing, but it is hard to understand all of these different approaches. But
and the other thing also to keep in mind here is, Chelsea, because what they did was the trailing commission reduced from 0.17 to 0.15, including plus GST. So one thing we always see, in our business, there's always a bit of a give and take. So sometimes we win some, we lose some, right? There's always the two sides for the story. So I think it's very important to keep an eye on it. And David, you are also a broker. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, look, I think it comes down to, I think, each individual business. Looking at Finance and Coffee, I think there's some brokers that suffer more clawbacks than others. As a broker, I'll always try and ascertain at initial conversation what the intentions are with a particular loan. And if you find out that it's going to be short term, always raise the fact of a fee for service at the start with that. But to try and mitigate that clawback, now there's different policies around, or different businesses will refund that if it goes beyond clawback periods. But I think going to the step clawback is certainly a lot fairer for the industry. However, we're seeing some opportunities where lenders are taking back a little bit of the income to compensate for that as well. So some brokers never have clawback, are going to suffer because of the loss of income. But as an industry, I think it's probably a better thing to have the step clawback in.
I was going to say too, I mean, there are so many people within the industry who are sort of solo operators. And I mean, Sadish has got a reasonable sized team, but, those who, might have one admin person, look at some of the tools that you can utilize around to sort of help with this too. Sometimes clients are embarrassed by what's happening. You only need to set up a term like hardship in any Facebook group around budgeting, and you'll see that people have got genuine concerns about it. So it's about reaching out, having the conversations. If you've got access, to CoreLogic, upload your entire database in there so you can see whether a property is listed for sale, whether it's listed for rent. Work with a business like Sherlock, who is able to track rates and tell you if something's going to be happening with a client. So I think those little additional tools that you can put in place too, and just constantly have those check-ins, especially prior to Christmas. We know that February is the month for refinancing because everybody's coming off their post-hangover, spending. So what tools can you put in place now to sort of combat some of this? And if people are looking to sell, and I think this is probably going to tie into our next topic, but if people are looking to sell because of what's been impacted, then you can have these conversations earlier. So our next topic.
So the government is doing some changes on the property tax in terms of the Victorian short stay tax and the land tax. Chelsea, I know you are too good on this, so I'll leave with you.
Yeah, so the government announced that they would be introducing a 7.5% short stay tax coming in from January 1st next year. And the vacant land tax is different to the land tax that everybody gets now. If a property isn't inhabited for 6 months, and there's some exemptions to that, like if you're constructing or there's a reason that the land's been vacant, and that's to do with a house on there. I challenge you all to go and have a look at the SRO stuff, because you also need a degree to understand some of that. But it's in an attempt to try and relieve the rental market, though I think it's probably a little bit late, because I personally had a look this morning and there are more rental properties than ever in my local area. The rents seem to have eased slightly. I think the people who couldn't afford $800 a week for a 1-bedroom apartment in Windsor have likely moved back in with their parents, and they're reconsidering their options. But that 7.5% short stay tax is obviously impacted Airbnbs, Ripper Ride, those types of websites. And from what I can understand is they're suggesting to those homeowners to pass the cost on to consumers. So consumers, again, are going to be hit with an extra tax, as well as cleaning fees and all of that. So I think many investors who may have Airbnb properties may consider, is this worth it? I'm already having to pay, tax on the income. I'm now having to pay an additional 7.5% tax. And even if you pass it on, is it worth that hassle? Sadish, have you had any of your clients ask you about this yet?
Not really the clients, but this actually happened to one of my properties. So one of the places I own that was closed for a renovation. Now got an email from the SRO directly asking to provide information. So I given all of that information. I'm very interested to know what it is. The lady was nice. I had a chat to her. I said, look, there's been renovations. That's why it was closed. But I'm very interested to know what are they ruling on it, because if it's renovating, that you have to close the property. You can't have tenants in there. But then if you're getting a tax on it, because you are, end of the day, you could be double taxed, because the idea is when you renovate it, the property value is going to go up. Then you could potentially be paying more on your rates notice anyway at a point of time. So now you'll be paying more rates, plus you'll be paying vacant land tax. So that's what I'm a little bit worried about, but let's see how it goes. Looks like I may have a personal story to share next time.
Yeah, look, from personal experience, Sadish, I went through a few months of the exact same thing. So explaining to the SRO the property was, being renovated, it had been trashed by a previous tenant, all of those sorts of fun stories. So it does say that if there are an exemption there, but it also took them 2 months to respond to me. So I think it's just one of those things that if you've got clients who do have properties on Airbnb, or the properties are vacant for whatever reason, just get ahead of it. Get a good accountant. So my accountant was very, very good at being able to explain. She got, information from the real estate agent as well, and we're able to sort of submit that. But I think if you're self-managing or your clients aren't versed in how these taxes will affect them, you don't want to be on the wrong side of the SRO. So I did chat to someone just yesterday who's just been hit with a $15,000 tax bill after they've made this ruling, and they've said that it's going to be backdated. So again, it's just understand it and get ahead of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now jump into the next one. I think we got something a little bit exciting topic, Chelsea. Before we jump to the last topic, what do you guys think about the social media? 16-year-olds, they can't use social media anymore. So that means you'll have to go and upload your ID into Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. What do you reckon, Chelsea? You got young kids.
Yeah, so I think I have an almost 13-year-old who at this stage doesn't really have a lot of interest other than talking to his buddies on Roblox. But the mother in me of a tween girl says, oh, man, am I all for it.
Yeah.
I recently went to a charity event down in Frankston. It was really, really sad. It was a local police officer whose 16-year-old son committed suicide after being bullied via Snapchat. And the bullies basically had created photos out of AI, probably using the same software as you, Sadish, and had, distributed naked photos across Snapchat. And the teenager didn't think about a way out, and took it into his own hands. So I can completely understand from a parent's perspective, because we want to protect them. I think some of the government measures that they're looking to put in place are going to be pretty hard to monitor. So am I going to go and take my 9-year-old, to get ID? And then she's going to have to go through and prove, oh, sorry, you're 9, you can't go and get ID. But some of the other things that came up, so I was reading what the government's going to look to try and do. There's parental two-factor authentication. They're looking at biometrics. Some of this stuff, it feels like it's still got a long way to come. The government haven't worked out yet what they're going to do here, but I think any parent, and David, you can probably talk to this, it's very different to us millennials and how we grew up with social media. The Gen Zs are just, different, and the alphas again. What are your thoughts, David?
Yeah, look, I guess my concern's more about what everybody's going to have to provide and how they provide it surrounding ID if they're signing up to a new platform, because I can see it becoming something whereby if I want to go and sign up to Instagram, which I'm not on, okay, am I going to have to provide ID into the market or into their platforms? And then how secure is that going to be with the collection points and all this? And, it comes down to, are we going to have some of these platforms, because of the cost of implementing this, start to go to a user pay type system? Maybe. I don't know where it's going to lead, but there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of water to go under the bridge. And, there's also some things that potentially they haven't thought about in this legislation in the rush to get it through.
And this is one of the reasons why the US is obviously concerned about the ownership of TikTok and how information is stored, where it's stored. And once you give it away, it's gone. But uploading ID, 100%, this is what all the consumer watchdogs are looking at, is around privacy, data collection, how secure is it? I mean, there has been numerous court cases against Meta around data and privacy. So having a look here, and this is, I guess, what I was sort of, trying to say. They're already talking about the fact that kids are going to be able to create AI versions of themselves and get around biometrics that way. So that's pretty crazy. And my almost 13-year-old, he would be smart enough to do that. I've met Deanne's son. He certainly would be smart enough to do that as well. And then the ID thing. So most of the parents have complained about the fact of, taking their underage child to go and get a proof of ID card just to be able to use social media platforms. So it'd be interesting, but I think we're a fair way off.
Yeah. But I think also, yeah. I think what
didn't have Australia card, didn't they? And for everybody, so.
But I think one thing we can look at and learn from is, because I know in US, the state, Texas as a state, they have their own ruling about I think over 16-year-olds logging back into social media, and what they did there, I think, and what are the challenges we face. I think that could be a really good like a case study we can have a look at to see what could potentially happen here, as well as what would be the impact of it. And especially for a mortgage brokers who are heavily on social media, I think it's a great for us to have a look at it, because I know I got all those social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it, I got it. So we just got to make sure what will happen to our audience, what will happen to the the view counts, what will happen to all that kind of things going to get impacted especially the people who are on the first home owner market. That'll be interesting for them as well as a mortgage broker.
Oh, I think it comes back to just marketing 101, Sadish. Like, we should never put all of our eggs in one basket, and having a conversation with a broker where, 95% of their leads are generated from TikTok. Some of their videos, are getting 2 million views, which is just absolutely mind blowing. But, that's why you should be using software to obviously do the cross-platform promotion. There's so many great tools now that are able to help you do it. But even if you just start, and it's frustrating because, you sort of look at it and you think, well, it's really millennials who are on Facebook and we're going on there and we're asking for advice, and the TikTokers are the ones, it's all that how-to language, but they are still on YouTube. We chatted about Snapchat recently. I'm personally not on there, but I also personally don't use Instagram either. But I think some of us really need to have a look at, where is our time spent? And if tomorrow you snapped your fingers, and that platform was gone, would it affect your business? And, this has happened with some of the cyber security things as well. I saw a very well known retailer who was shut down for 48 hours because of a cybersecurity attack. Their website was held hostage, and all of the clients' orders that were sitting within that platform were pending, and it was millions and millions of dollars worth of sales. So it's the same sort of thing that, if your TikTok, your Instagram, your Facebook was hacked, how would it affect your business? And those who have got amazing referral relationships internally with their clients, maybe not so much so, but if all of your business is generated through social media leads, then it's probably something just to think about a little bit more carefully.
Yeah. And I think the key here is just diversify your business. You know what I mean? Use for your system, cybersecurity is very important, right? Like if you're using offshore facility, use someone like David Browne. They can provide that security, the peace of mind. And even for your social media, have two-factor authentication, like stuff like that, just to make it easier, because I think those cyber security attacks are getting very more frequent as we go. So it's very very important. And like we use Microsoft 365. Last week, one of my guys accidentally clicked a link. Accidents happen, but then lucky, because through Microsoft 365 I got the app, I can reset the whole lot, everybody in our business with a click of a button. So it makes it easy. Everybody's reset and everybody get new passwords. So guys, thank you very much. I think that's all for today. David, really appreciate having you. And
thank you for having me.
And Chelsea, always love having you. Stepping into our Beth survey, do really appreciate you. And you guys are awesome.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Sadish. Have an amazing weekend, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Chelsea.
See you guys.
Sadish. Bye.